Hello friends, in this episode we'll take a break from sunny Poland and talk about the problems in the European Union, and the EU is falling apart at the seams. In Ceuta, there's been a massive migrant breach, neighbors are closing their borders and setting up military cordons. Bloomberg is warning about a global food crisis because of wars and drought. We'll break down this geopolitical cocktail in our signature style. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Friends, check your notification bell if you know what I mean. Leave a comment. Why isn't the bald guy at the front or at the sea? Yes, friends, liking and subscribing is most important. Thanks for your support. Now let's get to business. Well, my dear friends, European solidarity is cracking at the seams so loudly that you can hear it even in North Africa. While an epic mass swim is unfolding in Ceuta, by the way, we'll talk about that a bit later, a real mess has started within the EU itself. A real top-tier snake pit of envy and backstabbing. The first to lose patience was beautiful sunny Italy, represented by Italy's interior ministry. The guys in Rome looked at this whole spectacle and said, "That's enough. We are suspending Schengen with Spain and locking down sea and air borders." Meloni, Georgia and her team decided not to wait until this whole crowd rushes through the Pyrenees to the Italian welfare system. Paris didn't lag behind either. Macron took action. He twirled his mustache and said, "We're deploying troops and aircraft to the border with Spain, and we'll even launch drones into the sky." Macron likes to play at war. I still remember him riding in an armored personnel carrier during COVID. Basically, they've surrounded poor Spain from all sides, as if it's not an ally in the European Union, but some kind of Carthage, yeah. So, what about our main hero, the valiant Pedro Sanchez, when faced with all sorts of jabs from the Italians? Sanchez immediately stood up. He struck a pose of offended virtue, pouted and said, "I demand respect for European agreements," and right away he pulled an ace out of his sleeve like, "What about you? And what about us?" He reminded Rome that over the past 5 years, from 2021 to 2026, it was through Italy that almost 500,000 illegal immigrants came to Europe. That is, to be exact, 478,000. And for Spain, this number is half as much, only 234,000, and Sanchez says, "And look who's talking." There. Well, by the way, Sanchez simply chose not to notice the French move with planes and drones. Like, let's not argue with Macron. In short, friends, quite a picture. The European house is on fire, but instead of putting it out, residents are busy barricading their doors from each other and comparing statistics. Well, now we move on to the next part of our ballet. What kind of absolute hell did they stir up there? Or rather, Morocco and Spain. What's happening in North Africa? Well, basically, it's just some kind of surreal assault. The Spanish enclave of Ceuta, for those who don't know or are hearing about it for the first time, it quietly and peacefully sits on the African coast. And then, from the Moroccan city of Fnidek, a massive swim begins. Starting, I think, from the day before yesterday, 60,000 people couldn't care less about the border. Some swam from the beach, others broke through fences and barbed wire. The population of Ceuta is only 84,000, and here in just one day a whole army arrived, mostly made up of pretty strong men. What are the brave Spanish law enforcement officers doing? Nothing. They just stand there and watch sadly. Because just the day before, the Supreme Court of Spain made a brilliant decision. It's not allowed to automatically deport those who arrive by sea. Not allowed. Process each person individually following all rules. Maybe offer tea and cookies. Authorities and military arrive too, but it doesn't matter. The laws are like this. So humane. A question arises. Who is to blame and what should be done? In my view, the commander-in-chief of the Spanish government is responsible for everything. Don Pedro Sanchez. Well, probably the most left-leaning comrade among the leaders of the major EU countries. First of all, he managed to get into a spat with the Americans over Iran, even though he could have just kept quiet. Secondly, he has promoted incredible liberalism. Recently, he legalized more than 500,000 illegal immigrants in one go. Naturally, conservatives of all kinds are furious about such policies everywhere, even in the most unexpected places. Their hair stands on end. And the situation with Ceuta gave them not just a trump card, but, well, I don't know, maybe a whole bucket of fresh ammo they're happily unloading on Sanchez. Meloni, the Italian prime minister, is already openly saying something like Spain first get out of Schengen, and Trump across the ocean is even nodding along. See, I told you, if you vote for the Democrats, the same thing will happen here in Miami. And inside Spain itself, everyone is already piling on Sanchez for the porous borders. And honestly, I think it's absolutely deserved. For European right-wingers, this is a huge gift. It's basically a field day. Elections take place in France in the spring. Yeah, well, it seems like Marine Le Pen is already the favorite, and with news like this, her ratings just keep going higher and higher. Even the moderate centrists in Europe, who try to pretend they have strict migration control, look at Sanchez and cross themselves. God, what are you doing, old man? Sanchez has always been an odd one out for them, and now he's become the perfect scapegoat, someone they can blame for all the sins of the European Union. Well, and let's think about it, friends. The Moroccan connection. What is it? A coincidence or a special operation? Right? Well, because now we're getting into the most interesting geopolitics, which the armchair experts actually understand pretty well. The relationship between Spain and Morocco is, to put it mildly, tense. The Spanish doubt Morocco's rights to Western Sahara, and in response, the Moroccans consider Ceuta and Melilla. They're saying you've occupied our territories here. There are also ongoing disputes over the continental shelf near the Canary Islands. I've visited the Canaries more than once. It's great there. I'd happily accept real estate there as a gift. And now, back to the topic in the Spanish press, the whispers are getting louder. Maybe this whole event was organized by Rabat itself, I mean by the Moroccans. On social media, videos show Moroccan police politely escorting trucks with migrants to the barriers. Doesn't that remind you of the Polish-Belarusian border? Exactly. And in some places, they even politely open the gates, like, so the guys don't trip, go right ahead. This doesn't just look like a migration crisis, it looks like a hybrid occupation. And with things like this, the authorities in Ceuta could be changed right now. Why not just hold a referendum right here on the street right now? Sanchez is carefully avoiding the topic of Morocco's covert invasion for now. He says it's an attack on territorial integrity. But he blamed everything on some organized criminals, like little green men, right? Supposedly, they took advantage of the court's decision and encouraged people to swim across. Well, in short, it's some kind of comedy with elements of tragedy. We're watching how things develop. Well, friends, let's get some popcorn ready. And moving on. We're not done with the video yet. Watch until the end. Let's continue our fascinating dive into Europe-Africa drama. Yes, the news feeds report that the citizens who broke through to Ceuta, barely having time to dry off after their swim, immediately moved on to an active cultural and sightseeing program. Specifically, they went shopping. What else is there to do? Go look at cathedrals or something. But they decided to do it without receipts and without cash registers. Yes, simply put, they just started robbing stores and supermarkets. The local businesses, understandably, were completely shocked by this performance. Their hair stood on end. Shopping centers are battening down the hatches and closing their shutters. The Confederation of Entrepreneurs of Ceuta is now openly telling local shopkeepers, guys, stay home, keep a low profile until the authorities somehow restore at least some security. Otherwise, you'll lose your goods, your cash register, and they might even write nasty words in your store. Not even in Spanish, though by then it won't matter. But that's not all, my friends. On social media, people say that the newly arrived comrades quickly got the hang of Spanish laws and started moving into vacant houses left and right. And what's wrong with that? They say it's the Moroccans. The squatting laws, known as Ocupa laws in Spain, are considered incredibly unbelievable. Evicting a squatter from your own home, there is a real bureaucratic nightmare that can last for several months or even years. In general, the migrants don't waste any time. They make use of the local infrastructure and housing stock with unprecedented enthusiasm. And the Spanish authorities continue to sadly watch as the rule of law in practice turns into some kind of I don't even know what word to use, probably a circus. A circus. Friends? Anyway, interesting news is coming from Spain, yeah. If you thought the European Union's problems ended with the migrants in Ceuta, then I have more news for you. Let me just take a sip, if you don't mind, friends. I had a bit of beer yesterday. Cheers. There you go, sorry. Continuing, if you thought the problems ended with the migrants in Ceuta, there's another wonderful piece of news. Bloomberg examined the world economy and painted one grim picture after another. A global food crisis is looming on the horizon, and it's coming from two sides at once: military conflicts and the whims of nature. Let's start with the Black Sea region. The main hotspot on the planet is still the same, the Black Sea region. And by the way, this region feeds half the world. More than a quarter of the world's wheat exports, 2/3 of sunflower oil, and 10% of corn. And against the backdrop of constant strikes on port infrastructure and ships, the markets got so nervous that wheat prices jumped by more than 10% in July. That's, mind you, the sharpest monthly jump in the last couple of years. But the climate decided not to lag behind politics. In Europe, hellish heat set in, drought followed by devastating fires. So farmers are already holding their heads in despair because the grain harvest could drop to multi-year lows in sunny Australia. Although it's not part of the European Union, even where wheat is shipped by the wagon load, there is still drought, dryness, and despair. But the real trouble starts with rice. And by the way, more than half of the world's population relies on this crop for food. Because of the oceanic phenomenon El Niño, drought has come to India, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And India is actually the world's main rice exporter. Well, friends, the outcome is predictable. The outcome is predictable. The price of rice has already soared to its highest level in the past year and a half, and it doesn't seem to be stopping. And as if all that wasn't enough, the fuel and energy sector got hit too. Because of the conflict between the US and Iran, prices for fuel and fertilizers have started rising even faster. And without fertilizers, man, that's a weird word, fertilizer. And without fertilizers and diesel fuel, as we know, you can't plow or sow much. In general, the situation doesn't look very good. While politicians are fighting and trying to outdo each other, the laws of physics and economics keep working without any days off. So friends, let's stock up not only on popcorn, but also on buckwheat. That's the news. We'll look for something positive, and I'll try to share good news with you tomorrow or the next day. Because yeah, you understand the situation right now isn't great, but it's okay, we're holding on. Thank you for your attention. Hello to truck drivers, workers, and the working class. Here's to your health. Pim, because... Oh, it's a pity it's not cold. I should have put it in the fridge last night. So that's all for now. Until next time.